Welcome to Educators with Oil. I'm your hostess, Ronette Bryan. I'm here to offer biblical strategies for effective teaching. Today, I have a special guest, TD Flenaugh, host of Falling for Learning podcast. How are you today, TD?
I'm doing really good. Yes, I'm TD Flenaugh, and I have a podcast called Falling for Learning. I have been teaching for 20 years plus, and I really uh, feel like it's important to reach out to parents because over the years, I have had a lot of parents tell me that they know their kids are behind, but because of a teacher that really didn't really serve their child well in the past, their child is behind, even still like 5 years later. So their seventh grade teacher is talking about their second grade teacher. And it really saddened me because I know that parents can make a difference by putting in a couple of strategies to make sure that their students stay on track for learning and are on track for success.
That is so true. I'm listening to that, and that brings me to the scripture just because I watched a few of your shows, and that brought me to the scripture and Proverbs 22:6, where it says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. So I take that, like if we train students how to study, we train them even just basic math, basic literacy, then when they get old, they're not going to forget that. They're going to go back to that. Well, how did my teacher say? Like my teacher told me to read the questions first or whatever, and then read the story. Whatever, they're going to remember that. Some
Yes.
things that we teach as teachers, they don't forget. They might forget exactly the lesson, but they're not going to forget the overall moral of the story. This is what I should do, and we take that with us. So I can appreciate your podcast because that's like the flip side of what I do. I talk to the the students, but I'm not really. I connect with the parents. I give them tips, but to actually have a podcast for parents,
Yeah.
man, this is a partnership right here.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
love that. So,
So I
so what do
really,
you want to talk about today? So, okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh yeah, I really bring with me some information as a child, as well as a parent myself, and as an educator. Like what really will help support kids in being on grade level, making sure that they also have a positive relationship with learning and helping parents to understand their role in that place, that their place, the role they have in that pursuit. I really was actually teaching reading for a long time. I taught my sister how to read when I was in third grade. Well, the summer before my fourth grade year, I taught her how to read. And then I also grew up in a church where my mother and my aunt had started a tutoring program. So I tutored kids during my middle school and high school years as well. So it's something that I have been doing a long time. And then I became a teacher, of course. Um, so yeah, so that's the kind of experience I bring to the table, and really want parents to think in terms of their students or their kids or children's viewpoint when they're trying to help them with their schoolwork.
Love that. So you say then you became a teacher. You've been a teacher since you were 8 years old, but but officially, that is
Hmm.
something because I think I don't know about all teachers, but there are many teachers who have that story who they've been tutoring. Me, I've been tutoring probably uh 30 years, like tutoring. Not
Yeah.
that doesn't even count for school age. That's just as an adult.
Yeah.
So I know I have a new appreciation for you because teaching your siblings how to read, they don't want to listen.
No.
So I mean, unless you have, some kids they like that big sister or something, but they don't want to listen
Mhm.
to a lesson. We're not doing that. So So what advice do you have for parents as far as when you said, like you said, they're falling behind, and then you get your students, they're in high school. So
Yes.
how what do you advice do you offer?
Yeah, so I really want parents, what I hear a lot is that there's like some surprise about, when students are behind sometimes. It's like, well, I asked you if you did homework or you had homework and you said yes. And some parents, and there's a lot that really think that that's the check in, right? Do you do your homework? Yep. Okay. And then, we part ways, right? You go in the living room or I go cook dinner or, you go play your video game. But really it's important to know that for to set that precedent, like I'm going to be checking your homework, I want to really see what your work is. You don't have to make it something that is, you're upset with them or you're but just know, like, when I come home or at 5 o'clock, whatever you give them a time, the expectation, I'm going to be checking it. I want to see what you're learning. I want to hear that vocabulary. Like, I'm learning about quadratic equations. Like, I want to hear the vocabulary. Well, I just have math. Like, but what vocabulary to let me know, like, what actually are you learning in math, right? What are you learning about in history? What are you learning about in English? What's the name of the story? What are some strategies that you're working on, activities that you're doing? And so that's what you really need to see the work. Like, let me see the work. And now a lot of work is online. So it's like, okay, let's pull up the login. Um, and, you have to know your child, because I definitely know that some kids will go in there and change the login. Oh, the login's not working.
No.
So you have to be ready for that. And, um, you know, you could even build in rewards for your kid. Like, okay, every time you could show me your work or show me your assignments, log in and show me, then you may you have a reward. So you may want to build that in. Or we're going to be doing these activities on the weekend, as long as you're on track, right? You have your things going on. Um, so make it an expectation. Now, if you have a kid who's just like, I never have homework, I never have any work to do, again, you could make the expectation that you want to still see the work that they've completed, right? Still make that the expectation. But, and then you may also have some activities that they're doing at home that you're linking to learning. And always, again, I'm falling for learning. So I think about fun. How can we make it fun for them? Link it in to their interest, the topics that already engage them, that they talk a lot about, that they're always seeking information for, they're always engaged in a particular video game, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Dial into what your kids like and love so that you can connect that to learning activities. Maybe find a book about it, find an article about it, so really think in about dialing into kids.
Oh yeah. I while you were talking, I was thinking about also, I, it's like expanding that what they're learning. I was thinking if they can give you back what they're learning in school, like actually explain something. So you could
Yes.
say, okay, we're learning two-digit subtraction. Okay, so can you explain that to me? If you can explain it to me, then that means you're actually learning. I like that because we like you said, we're busy parents are
Yes.
busy, and
Hmm.
then it's like, okay, you have homework or you finish your homework, or this teacher doesn't give homework. But if you can ask them more specific questions, I like that because it's easy to ask questions. You could be cooking and asking questions.
Absolutely. Yes. And I really am a big proponent of thinking about how, right? Sometimes parents feel overwhelmed. They're like, I can't check on homework. I can't do this with a teacher. I don't have time for a conference. But it's like, well, how can you do something? Well, I could send an email to a parent, to a teacher. So I've had parents email me at 1 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock. Some people are nurses, whatever. Of course, I don't have to answer that email as a teacher, but that parent has sent that email to actually do a check in to see what's going on with their kid and to get some information from me. So, yeah, you may not have time for that conference that's 2 p.m. in the afternoon, but you can send an email, right? You may be able to have a phone conference. Say, I can't leave right now, but my lunch break is at 2 p.m. Can we have a phone call? And a lot of teachers are happy to accommodate you. So don't think about what you can't do. Think about what you can do to support your kid. And yes, maybe you don't know anything about their studying calculus. You may not know nothing about that, right? You may not know anything about it. But
Right.
you can have your kid explain what they're learning in calculus, the vocabulary, how they went through it. They could show you the work that they're doing. And you kind of have an idea if someone knows what they're talking about based on that, right? If they don't have a lot to say about it, again, you could check out videos or whatever if you want to see, like, does this sound about what they were talking about as well? Like, you don't have to actually learn that uh, topic or, but try to figure out what you can do to help support your kid. Think about what can fit into your schedule, because, your kids are your legacy, and we really need to make sure that they're dialed into learning. Um, and if we don't, we may be, some people are taking care of their kids in a lot later years than they were expecting because their
Yeah.
kids maybe don't have the skills, or they have limited options about what they could do because they didn't get that learning.
Right. Oh, I love that. So, as a teacher, I would tell, I'm going to take it straight from what you just said when I go back to school. This is what we can do as parents because we have this communication class dojo where we
Yes.
communicate with the parents, and that's going to be one of my top 10 suggestions. You can ask your child if I don't give homework, you can ask your child, uh, explain what you did in school, explain what you're working on. That's a great tip. So uh, also talking to parents, when they send us a message, we can give office hours, and even if it's outside of our office hours, you can always respond. Anytime you can respond. And another thing, just say you said like 2 o'clock, I'm in class. I can talk to my administrator and say, a parent's going to call. Can you send support to my class while I talk to this parent? So parents, we can get in there and get with that teacher. I love that.
Yeah.
So, what kind of response are you getting from parents when you give these suggestions? Are they giving feedback?
Well, yeah, parents say, well, oh, yeah, they didn't think about it, or, because I feel like sometimes when we're overwhelmed, I know when I get overwhelmed, I don't really think clearly. I'm not really thinking about those other paths or the alternative ways to do things. So it's good for us to give them tips about what they can do, right? They may not have, whatever the time to go in there, talk to the teachers, but they can do a lot of things. And as teachers, we definitely can give parents those suggestions so that parents are connecting. Another thing about parents, like about teachers and making that home connection, is I know like one of the best practices is to make a positive phone call to parents first, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that your first call is not a negative call, right? But if, sometimes, if you don't have a chance to do that, still try to start the conversation positively. You know, Kim is such a good friend. I noticed she's a good friend and she does these positive things. One thing that we can work on, and right, so this is what you really want to talk about, the issue, right? She's talking a lot while I'm talking and she's not getting her learning. And try to direct whatever you're talking about to parents about your kids learning, because sometimes we're irritated with the parent, I mean with the kid, of course, and it's like, who, they're disrupting class. But always link that back to the parent's interest, which is the kid's not getting their learning. She's a great friend. She gets along well with others, but when she's talking during class, she's not getting the learning that she needs. And so please talk to her, so that she can, be more successful in class. And, but, really talk to parents about the learning. I think sometimes we more talk about behavior
Behavior,
and
yeah.
the negative, but really
Mhm.
try to talk positive. And then also, after I have that call where I'm like, they need to work on this, I do have days where I'm like, I'm just making a positive phone call today, you know, Kim. was, really on track. She really listened and she really was in class. She had great comments that she made to the class discussion. Thank you. Have a good day. You know, and I don't
Yeah.
have to point out that she's not perfect and that
Mhm.
she whatever. I'm just pointing out that positive thing because that makes parents more receptive. But if every time I call I have a negative thing, then parents, we've all had it where they just don't answer that phone. They will not
Right.
respond, you know? So I've had
Right.
the most success when I talk to parents. I start with positive. I don't always get in that positive phone call first. I want to be honest with
Mhm.
that. But I do make that first phone call as positive as possible and also connected to learning. And then making sure I send a positive call home. The next call is a positive call home, even if it's like a really small thing. Even if they did something negative today, that day, I still try to find that positive, and that's the only thing I mentioned in that call. And then that makes it more receptive as we go forward, so they could work with me, because parents, will get a negative viewpoint of a teacher. Their kid has a negative viewpoint of the teacher. But, the ultimate goal is for the kids to learn. And we really need to make sure we focus in on that.
Absolutely. As you were talking over the years, when you've been teaching 20 years, you things click. Like when you said that, I taught preschool for over 10 years. So now I'm in elementary school, but I called this parent. We had to do, make calls. So I think the child was sick. I'm not sure, but I
Mm-hmm.
remember the parent's response to me. He was angry picking up the phone because his child was in school already a year with another teacher, and he had behavior issues. He was 4, like he had behavior issues, and he was like, hello, what do you want? Like he was so angry. And I was like, how you doing, sir? And I was explaining who I was, and he was like, okay. And then I explained whatever it was, but it wasn't
Right.
that because he was expecting a negative phone call. And so then I made him at ease. And then every time he saw me from then on, he was nice and friendly because he wasn't. And so now if I see him in the street, he's like, how you doing, Miss Brenda? It was Miss Ronette because that's how we said in preschool. But he just changed his whole viewpoint
Mm-hmm.
on the teacher.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you are so right with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have to remember that, there is a generational miseducation of certain groups, right? Black people have been underserved in education for multiple generations. There's a negative relationship with schooling for many people. And the more we could um, focus in on the benefits to the child, right? She needs to get her learning in and not focus in on, she's really causing a lot of problems. I'm feeling frustrated, Try not to communicate it that way to parents. Um, get that positive phone. If you don't get the first positive phone call, make sure that second one is positive. Focus in on something they did well and do it more than once, right? Because if you know, and we know, certain kids we're gonna probably be in communication with the parent all year, right? We kind of know, um, based on some behaviors that they're exhibiting. But the more that we could make it positive, tie it to the learning, and have those positive calls, then our parents can work with us. And I've really seen some turnarounds when I have implemented that strategy because I didn't always, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we learn. We live and we learn.
We do. Yeah. And it's
I have
important. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have another question because it's with the parents. So that parent, back to what you said in the beginning, that parent that says, my child is struggling in school. Maybe that's why they are so verbal because that's the only way they could communicate because they don't even understand what's happening in the class. What kind of advice do you give a parent for that? That's just the second half of that. You're calling about behavior, you know.
Yes. I think one of the things that I really do are talking to parents about reading. And I've been working in secondary most of my career. And what I say is, even though that they, I think a lot of parents get this thing like, you should be reading chapter books, you should be reading this, you should. We talk about what they should do, and we have to accept the kids where they are. If they're not there, that's okay, but don't, just work with the kids. I don't, I know we do that a lot when they're in kindergarten or first grade, but in high school, in middle school, you still can read with them. And it will be a little different, right? Than when they were fourth grade. I mean, when they were in like an elementary kid, or but we read with them. We read articles. We talk to them about, um, issues that are going on in the world right now, and we make sure that we engage them intellectually. And you can read a paragraph, they can read a paragraph, they could read a page, you could read a page. The more that you can engage your kid with learning and reading and math, these different activities, they're going to get better. And I think a lot of that is kind of left behind. Like, okay, you're in third grade, you should know how to read now. You're in fifth grade, you're in seventh grade, you're 11th grader, you should know. And they may not know. And so, parents are the first teachers, and they're supposed to be the continuous teachers. So stay engaged, continue to engage them. It's not going to look the same. They're not going to be the same type of topics or the same kind of books or the same kind of articles, but continue to engage them, because they do, and especially middle schoolers and high schoolers, they start forming their own opinions. They might be able to debate with you, and they will enjoy that. They'll enjoy debating with their mom, like, oh, mom, you're so old school. You think blah, blah, blah. But let me tell you about this new thing. And you could say, well, this article says this. And then sometimes they could come back like, oh, this has been going on. Because a lot of times the old generation will be like, oh, this new generation is so rough, blah, blah,
Uh-huh.
blah. And then they'll come back. Well, I just read an article about how in the 1950s, people were sent away when they had the teenage pregnancies. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So they're like, you guys were just hiding it. And now, so if you can really
Uh-huh.
engage your child with articles and current events and stuff like that now, because they need to continue to be engaged. And of course, you may see that they are behind, but that doesn't mean, okay, we're going to read baby books because you're not at the level you're supposed to be. Like, no, we could just read um, things that are lower level, or I'm still going to be reading with you. I'll read part of it, you read part of it. um, so just continue to engage with your kid. Make sure you make a designated time to read. I would say really, um, especially when they get older, still plan, right? Plan to make a time to read with them, or to write with them, or do math with them, so that they'll expect it, because they have a life, right? At that age, I'm playing video games, and sometimes parents make it like into a punishment. Are you over there with your video game? Get off that
Uh-huh.
video game and open up a book. You know, So of course I'm going to be
Absolutely.
really irritated to read. I'm going to have an attitude, but if at 5 p.m. I'm going to be expecting you to read at home, then it's just expected, right? It's not like it's a punishment because I'm irritated that you're on the video game again. It's like, no, I'm working, and come up with goals together. Like, okay, I'm having problems with this type of book, or so my goal is to be, you're working towards that goal with your child. So, take an active role in helping them develop goals, as well as engaging and learning with them at home.
Right. I love that. 'Cause I tell my parents about reading with their child, let their child read to them, as they're learning to read. Like, even if you don't have time, you're cooking, your child is reading to you.
Yes.
You may not understand English, but they do. You don't know if they're reading the words right or not, but the more they read, and then I did a couple of things. My granddaughter, she had to read a story, Tuck Everlasting. She had to answer questions. So we read it together. I read a page, she read a page, and then
Mm-hmm.
we were able to discuss what that meant to live. I don't know if you know
Yes.
the story Tuck Everlasting. You
Yes.
should. Right? I
Mm-hmm.
watched the movie, so the book was different.
It
It was
was.
not the same, but it was new to me. So we were able to discuss that. Well, what does that really mean to live, forever? You're watching people, all your friends are dying, and you're just the same age. So that's a discussion as you're
Yes.
reading. I Man, that family, and then like you have family game night, you got family reading night. That's good. That's some good stuff.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah.
I
And
like that.
I would say to parents, don't shy away from those controversial topics, because I will just let you know, or like more advanced, or like, because the sad thing is they'll get advice and information from their friends who don't know anything. So they might as well talk
Mm,
about it with you, because they're talking
right.
about it just because you're like, oh, I don't, well, let's not talk about, they're talking about it with someone. A lot of the times that
Absolutely.
information is dead wrong, or against what you believe in you're teaching them. So talk to them about these issues, have debates with them about the issues, look at what that other side says, like, oh, this other group feels this way, and I don't believe in that because of this, and have the debates, because they're having them or talking about them with other people. So,
Absolutely.
and continue to engage them with the reading and the learning, even though that maybe you see they're behind, or even if they're not behind, any kid should be continuing to get engaged with reading, writing, listening, speaking, the math at home. And if you see they're behind an area, again, set goals with them together, rewards with them together as they're working on these goals. You consistently been reading 30 minutes, at least 4 times a week for the past month, for the past 2 months. And I definitely see a difference with you. And, give them a reward, put them on a
Yeah. Man, this is a video I want to share with my parents. Look at this. I don't know how it would translate, if they can translate it. I don't know how that works because all my parents are Spanish speaking, so
I
some
see.
of them don't speak
Okay.
English. But this is I love this because this is actually a tool. This whole episode right here is actually a tool for parents. I know that's what we set out to do,
Yes.
but we have accomplished that because this is so perfect. Parents sometimes they don't know what to do. They don't
Right.
know how to help their children, how to help, because this affects your home life. When your
Yes.
child is having issues in school, this affects it. You getting calls from teachers not giving positive messages. They're like, your child is behind. She's not reading. I gave her homework. She never does it. All that kind of stuff. We give those messages. So this,
Yeah.
man, I
It's
like.
really important, yeah, to give parents some concrete things that can be done. When they are behind, they may not be able to do the math homework or the reading homework. So then try to make an effort to give them something that they can. And now, like when I first started teaching, like very difficult. Like I got to figure out what to do. Now they have programs like newsela.com, or Newsela is the term, but it's NEWSELA.com, and they'll have like passages that you could make it lower lexile level, to fit, like this child is a little bit behind, so we're going to give them a lower lexile level, but they have the same article just in, and News ELA makes the words easier, right? But they'll have the whole range. Like I could put it high school level, I could put it lower level, and they'll just, instead of using words like decompress or
Yeah.
dysfunction, they'll put in easier words. So it says
Hmm.
the same thing. So those are ways that they could have very similar work, um, but not the same level, right? So, and it's done for us. But when I first started teaching, it was like, wow, how can I give this
Right.
child something different? I'm going to give them a whole nother article. I'm going to rewrite it myself. Like it just
Right.
more difficult. But now there are resources out there that we can give them an easier passage, but the same passage, right? The same
Yeah.
topic. Yeah. So think in terms of that. There's different tools out there to help us differentiate, or just to tell parents, read with them 20, 30 minutes. And I do want to say, especially when we're thinking about kids that are behind, that
Hmm.
they may have a very negative relationship with learning. And so it is part of the parent's job to help them reset the relationship to learning. And how do they do that? And what I say is really start with positives, compliments. So, oh, I see that you worked hard on the writing. You wrote,
Hmm.
3 paragraphs. And again, there might be 50 mistakes in those 3 paragraphs, but you're going to focus in on positives. You wrote 3 paragraphs. You have a funny detail in here. It makes me laugh or whatever. Find something positive. And even if you can't read the kids writing, have them read it to you, you know. Just
Yeah,
try to think
yeah,
about positives, help them reset the relationship. And then shorter times. I know people say, oh, read 45 minutes when they get older, or
yeah,
read 30 minutes. But maybe we're starting with 5 minutes because my kid hates to read. So I have to build them up to that, show them positives about it, give them compliments, and we're working up to that. And that might be our goal. We're going to work up to reading 15 minutes at a time because they hate it and there's a lot of problems with it. We're going to work up now. This next month, we're going to do reading 30 minutes at a time or 20 minutes, whatever it is, so you could get your kid there to that next level. Um, and really, I think like sometimes parents get really intense and
yeah,
really upset, and they really have to watch that because the kids hate, they hate to do the learning and the activities because you've made it where they get in trouble, where you're yelling at them. So again, short bursts of time. And if you're the person that's not that patient, take a step back and tell parents,
yeah,
take a step back.
yeah.
We'll work on this in about 30 minutes. I'm going to take a walk, or we'll work on it tomorrow, or whatever. And they could write a note to the teacher, say, I worked on this with them, but we had a little challenge or whatever. But, it's like, but you have to slowly build up that relationship again, and you have to be patient, and you have to be complimentary, say positive things. Um, because it's hard, but it's worth it, to work with your kid and to build them up. And teachers, give your parents these tips and strategies so
Hmm.
that you could see the difference in the classroom, and the kids could see the difference at home. Parents will feel the difference because it does affect, like you said, Ronette, it affects the family life. We're all frustrated and they're mad at each other at home because the homework's not getting done, the grades aren't, whatever. But take a step back. Um, Focus on building them up. Again,
Right,
emphasizing building them up.
right. I'm hearing so much. I'm hearing the focus is for, you said it, your child to learn. So reading, build it up. And you don't have to read for 30 minutes when it's hard for them. It's a struggle. Might not even be something that they like. And so if the focus is, we want to help them be a better reader so that they could do every other subject once you could read. So focus on them learning, not what they're not doing or what they can't do. Because when you focus on the lack, that's where the problem comes.
Yes.
There, a problem comes out of that every time.
Yes, kids are
So,
internalizing those messages. I'm not good at this. Um, I can't do it, right? I'm not going to be able to do it. And that's why I'm saying focus in on those positives so they can see, oh, okay, well, I have some funny parts in this part that I wrote. Um, whatever it is that's positive, and they could see but if it's just negative that you're saying about their learning and what they're doing and what their writing looks like or whatever, then they've internalized,
yeah.
I'm not good at that and I can't get good at it. But you're building them up and letting them know, no, you can get better at it. You have these couple of things that you're good at, and we're going to help you build up with other areas. And let children know about the learning process, right? The learning process has a lot of mistakes in it.
Hmm. For everything. It's like learning to drive. I heard somebody say that the other day. Learning to drive. You didn't just drive. I don't know who said that. I don't know. Somebody, you didn't just get in the car and drive. You didn't. There's no way unless you're a prodigy or something. So it takes time. You might have ran over a curb or something, but it takes time. So I'm appreciating this conversation. I don't want to hold you. Is there any last word? Are there any last words that you want to leave with our teachers, parents, even if a student is watching this with their parents?
Yes. So you can find me on, you could go to my podcast. It's Falling for Learning. I'm on Apple Podcasts and all the major places that have podcasts. Also, you can go to my website which is fallinginlovewithlearning.com. And I'm on Instagram at Falling for Learning, and on Facebook at Falling for Learning. On YouTube, I'm at youtube.com at fall, the number four, learning. So it's a little different, the YouTube. But we would love for you to listen in on our show. And we have like different resources, different experts in different areas that give you some insights on how to help students to fall in love with learning.
And that's the goal. Fall in love with learning, be a lifetime learner. I
Absolutely.
appreciate you, TD. Again, I'm loving this episode. You know, when you have tips for everybody in one shot, that's it. I mean, I love that. So,
Thank
again,
you.
everyone, thank you for joining in with Educators with Oil. Again, I'm your hostess, Ronette Branham. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you, and have a blessed day.
Thank you.